Well, how you doing, folks? Chuck Holton here. I am in Yeshi, Romania, something like that. Uh, I'm gonna put my earpiece in because it's kind of loud. There's a lot of. Okay, maybe that's better. Maybe we're hearing me a little bit better now. Um, so I'm in Romania. Look at this magnificent building behind me. Isn't that something? It's called the Palace of Culture. It's got 365 rooms, 4 museums, and I don't know how many bathrooms, but probably a bunch. See if I can keep from getting run over here. Walk down here. So I came out of Ukraine. Oh, yeah, thank you. I came out of Ukraine a couple days ago, and I've been here in Romania today, yesterday, 2 days ago. Then yesterday I went to Moldova, and then came back to Romania today, and I kind of got an idea of what it's like being a refugee from Ukraine. I'll tell you, let me explain the story. So, there are, of course, hundreds of thousands of refugees that are making their way out of Ukraine and into all of the European countries to the west. So, Moldova is the closest for many people, but it's also the poorest and the most friendly to Russia, most like Russia. So, there are a lot of people that would rather not go there. Poland is the furthest away for many people, but also the friendliest and richest and most likely for them to be able to get jobs and things like that. So they they are making their way out. They've now over 3 million people. Hello, Japan. Over 3 million people have left Ukraine. They say another 6.5 million are internally displaced, and all to the west, of course. So if Ukraine could tip over from being overweighted to the west, it would. Um, so I went into Moldova at the border between Ukraine or between Romania and Moldova. There is a um, like a bunch of tents and stuff. I'm gonna go walking through this little marketplace now. I'm gonna turn the camera around so you can see what I'm seeing. This is kind of nice. So there are these tents set up and volunteers at the border that oh gosh, this stuff is so good. This is hot red wine. It's kind of like with fruit in it. It's kind of like sangria, Mexican sangria, but it's hot and it's delicious. I could drink that stuff all day long out here. Um, there's some honey, jewelry, and stuff. Anyway, so these tents at the border are staffed by volunteers who have been out there helping these migrants as they come across migrants, refugees, whatever you want to call them. There's another really cool little cathedral. That's from the 14th century, right there, and it's got all this carving all over the entire outside of it. It's really amazing. I'll go over here and show you. So these volunteers hand out diapers and baby formula and coffee and gloves and hats, whatever people need, and try to help them out. They're set up at the border between Ukraine and Romania. They're also set up at the border between Romania and Moldova, or yeah, Romania and Moldova, because a lot of people come into Moldova and then go, I don't want to stay here. Check that out. That's cool. The whole church is just carved up like that. Isn't that neat? Um, anyway, so they they are at all the borders helping the Ukrainians that are coming across. So I wanted to see what Moldova was like. So I went over there, took a taxi from here to Chisinau. I can't pronounce any of the names over here, but the capital city of Moldova, Chisinau or something like that. Um, the taxi from here to it's about a 3.5 hour drive from here to the capital city of Moldova, and it cost me about $100. So very cheap, very cheap. The cost of living here must be super low. I think it's actually one of the lowest in Europe. So I stayed at a hotel over there last night. Very nice hotel. Uh, Unlike Romania, what I've seen of it so far, with these ridiculous castle-y buildings and cathedrals and stuff, Moldova's kind of Soviet and plain and colorless. There's a couple of nice things, but it's no place that I would want to go back to. I stayed in a nice hotel though, had a nice meal. Got up this morning, went to the gym, and then got a taxi back. The taxi back was about half the cost of the taxi going over there because Moldova is even cheaper than Romania is. And took me now this is where the interesting story comes in because I took the taxi to the border. Yesterday when I went over there, I hired a like an Uber. I actually got an Uber going to the border, and then I told the guy where I was going, and he said, "Well, I can take you all the way into Moldova if you want. I've got my passport and everything, and we can just cross right across." And I said, "Oh, great, fantastic!" So the Uber ride lasted to the border, and then he turned the meter off, and then I just paid him cash for the rest of the ride. And he took me 3.5 hours to Chisinau, and then dropped me off and turned around and came right back and gave me his phone number and said, "When you want to come back, give me a call, and I'll come get you." But I didn't want him to have to drive another 7 hours round trip, so I got a local uh, Uber. They don't have Uber in Moldova, but they have something called Yandex. Yandex is a Russian version of Uber. Actually, it's a Russian version of Google. But they have an Uber, they have a search engine, they have all sorts of stuff that belongs to Yandex. And they have that in Armenia too. So that's why I already had it on my phone. So I was able to get a Yandex ride all the way to the border, which is about 3 hours from the capital city. And then my idea was just walk across the border, which might save some time, and then have my buddy come get me, this guy that took me yesterday, come get me at the border and bring me here. It didn't quite work out like that. The price of the Yandex taxi for a 3 hour ride was $43. Unbelievable. So cheap. Um, so then I got out of the taxi, had him drop me off, and I went to walk across the border. The border guard stopped me and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm crossing the border." He said, "Oh, you can't cross the border unless you're in a vehicle." I was like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, we don't let people cross as pedestrians." I was like, "You're kidding me. Like, now what do I do? Because I don't have a car." And he's like, "Oh, sorry." So I just walked up to the first car I saw, uh, which was kind of toward the front of the line. It was a black BMW. And uh, and I, just knocked on the window and I said, "Do you speak English?" And he said, "A little." And I was like, "I need help." And he said, "Okay, get in." And so he let me ride with him across the border. Well, that kind of ended up causing some trouble for both of us because he and his family are Ukrainian refugees. Now, get this. I get talking to the guy. I'm like, "Well, what do you do?" And he says, "Well, I have a YouTube channel." I'm like, "Really? A YouTube channel?" And he goes, "Yes." I said, "How many subscribers do you have?" He said, 55 million. I was like, "What? 55 million subscribers?" He's like, "Yeah." So if you're on YouTube right now, make a separate tab and go check it out. His account is called the Q, like after James Bond, like Q, on James Bond. And look at this building. Check that out. It's another beautiful building. I'm not sure what it is. This guy's name was Ferdinand. Prim first. This is first something up there on the. Oh, it's municipal building. Okay. Um, anyway, so this guy's got 55 million subscribers, and he makes videos about like how to build a soda machine, or how to build a car out of a Coke can. I mean, just stuff like that. And these videos get like 200 million views. So this guy's making bank, and he was uh, in Kharkiv. He lived in Kharkiv, so his city's getting bombed to smithereens. And he said, we thought we would stay, but then he said I looked out the window and the bombs were falling, and I saw them coming for our building, and I was like, we got to get out of here. He said we fled with just clothes on our back, and they literally didn't have any luggage except they had thrown his little 2-year-old son's bike in the back of his car, and they just took off with the clothes they had on them. He said we've been traveling for 4 days, sleeping in hotels and stuff, and we we're just trying. He said we don't have any idea where we're going to go. We're just hoping to go west, get out of here. So they didn't want to stay in Moldova, like I said. A lot of people don't want to stay there. Um, and so we had a good conversation. A very interesting guy. Some of his videos are amazing. I went and subscribed right away to his channel. It's called The Q. So go check it out. So, and this guy, um, he's like, yeah, we make really good money doing this, but we can't get out any of our money because the bank, the banks are all closed. Everything's locked up. We can't even access our accounts right now. And so he's like, yeah, things are pretty tough. We're not really sure what we're going to do. We may have to sell our business. There's a nice cathedral. We may have to sell our business, and we just we have like several employees, and we don't know what, some of them have left and some of them are staying, and we don't know what to do. So when we got up to the border checkpoint, they they were pretty friendly, and this is the Moldova side, right? To leave Moldova, they're pretty friendly to him. Oh, you guys are Ukrainian refugees. Okay, great. But he said they didn't like that he was driving a BMW, and they're like, man, being a refugee must be pretty tough. I wish I was a refugee, that kind of thing. Um, I mean, obviously, the only people that are able to leave right now are people who have the money to leave and the vehicle to leave. And if they don't have that, they're not going to be able to get out of there. I'm going to go over here because there's another cool building this way. I'll turn the camera around while I talk. So they kind of gave me a little hard time about his car, but then they wanted to know who I was. And they're like, are you in the military? And I'm like, why does everybody ask me that? Everybody thinks I'm in the military. And I mean, look at me. I'm old. Like, if I was a soldier, your country would be in trouble. I said, yeah, I was in the military like 100 years ago, but not anymore. And they're like, are you sure? Are you sure you're not a spy? And they really started giving me a hard time. They're looking through my passport. They're, asking me all these questions. And I'm like, I'm a journalist. And they're like, yeah, sure, you're a journalist. Right. And the guy, they didn't speak much English at all, so he had to use Google Translate, which is fantastic, by the way. Google Translate is great. So he spoke into Google Translate and then translated to me. And what he said was, you don't have any right to be here in Moldova and move around Moldova right now because of the war. And I just, spoke back to him, and it translated. And I said, you were the guy who stamped my passport yesterday when I came across here. I'm just here as a tourist. I wanted to see what Moldova was like. And I'm only here for a day. And he's like, I don't think you're a journalist. And so I just Googled my name and showed him some of my reports. And then they were like, oh, look, hey, this guy's on TV. oh wow, cool. You know, and then they're like, okay, you're good to go. So Google saved my life, not only because of the translate feature, but because of the I'll turn around and go back this way. Because of the translate feature, but also because I could they can Google my name and find out who I am. Isn't that funny? And the Ukrainian guy told me, he said, that's one reason we don't want to stay in Moldova because they're so stuck in the Soviet ways. In the Soviet Union, you didn't have any right to travel. You'd had to get special permission from the government to leave your town to travel anywhere. And you were just a cog in a machine. You don't get to decide what you want to do. The government tells you what you're going to do, and you like it. That's how it works. And some of these former Soviet countries are still kind of stuck in um, that cycle or that mindset of you don't have any right to travel. You don't have any right to be a tourist. What are you talking about? So, very interesting experience. When it took about 2 hours for us to get across the border, so I'm glad I left a little extra time before I had to go to the airport. And when we finally got across, then the Ukrainian guy dropped me off, and the taxi picked me up, and the Ukrainian guy and his family went on to the refugee tent over there to try to probably ask, like, what do we do now? I mean, imagine having to pick up and leave your home in minutes and have no idea where you're going, no idea where you're going to stay, no idea what your life is going to look like from now on. That is the refugee experience that these Ukrainians are having to face. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. I hope you like the walkabout of Yash. Yash. It's another IASI is the way you spell this town's name, but it's pronounced like Yash. So, okay, here you go. Uh, Today I am getting on an airplane and I'm heading to Egypt. I'm going to Cairo tonight, and tomorrow I'm going to Sharm el Sheikh and with my wife for a couple days. And we're going to be tracking down the path that the Israelites took as they fled Egypt during the Exodus. And then we're going to fly to Saudi Arabia and see the rest of the path that they took to Mount Sinai and check out the real Mount Sinai. And so be looking for some more podcasts about that in the next few days. And then we're going to go to Armenia for a few days and make some news and see our kids. And then I'll probably go back to Ukraine again if things are still popping off over there. So thank you for all your support and your prayers, and that you guys all prayed for me and supported me while I was trying to get out of Ukraine. And I will have a lot more cool content coming up in the next few days. So thanks for watching Hot Zone. We'll see you.